Who's your emergency contact? Who should be notified in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. Now, I've been in the feds for my whole bit. I did almost 3 years the first time, about 28 months. The first time I went to a FCI, Florence. I got out in 98, and I was out on the street in 98 for about 6 months. Then I caught 26 years. And the last 24 years, 23 years and 8 months, I spent it all in the USP. So I really can't speak on anything that goes on in the state joint, especially out here in Utah, because I've never been there. But from what I gathered back from all my homies that's been in the state joint and other people that I know that's been in the state joint, you know, our state is small. They only got 2 prisons. They used to have Draper. They shut it down, they tore it down, and they opened up a new prison. I don't know where that prison is located now, but they had Draper and they had Gunnison. You know, and they just lump everybody in there. They got like a gang module, a gang unit for people that are active. They go there, they start out their bid being locked down, and they got to work their way down into population. But in population, they have everybody on the yard. Dudes that are busters, they got dudes that got sex cases, you know, whether they violating girls or boys or kids or whatever, they're all in the yard. And, you know, I always question the people that come back from the state joint. I'm like, how are you guys sitting in the unit with these dudes? You know, in the Utah state system, everything's by parole. You know, if you get a 3rd-degree felony, it's a 0 to 5, from 0 to 5 years. 2nd-degree felony is 1 to 15. 3rd-degree felony is 5 to life. So meaning a 1 to 15, you can go there, you can do 1 year, or you can go up to do all, the whole 15 years. And that's the same thing with the life sentence, with the 5 to life. You know, usually people that go in there with the 5 to life, they get out between 20 and 25 years. You know, depending on if it's for a body, it's anywhere between 15 to 25 years. You know, for everything else, you know, who knows, depending on how they behave in there. So they have this parole system that hangs over these guys' head. So now they throw these sex offenders in the yard with you. And, you know, I understand, like, when you're locked up, man, and you got time to do, you know, your objective is to be able to come home as soon as possible. And they know these dudes are crud balls that's walking around with them. But in the state, you put your hands on them, they'll charge you. You know what I mean? Or if they don't charge you, they'll take your date. So a lot of people, even though they feel a certain type of way about these type of dudes, they pretty much leave them alone because they don't want to lose their good time or the rest of it. Like, you know, I'm not any better than anybody else. I'm not more gangster than the next man. I don't ever put myself out there like, you know, I'm doing anything extra. So any story that I share with you guys is just from my own personal experience. And on my personal experience is that I'm not going to sit at a table with a rat. I'm not going to sit at a table with a sex offender. You know, in the feds, like, everything gets broke down to race, and everybody politics their own. That's not to say that there wasn't sex offenders or rats in my block, because there were, but they were of a different race. And, you know, just the facts is one of the groups that really don't push that line. And when I say group, I'm not talking about gangs. You know, like the gang members, whether you're GD, Vice Lord, Chris, Bloods, P Stones, Land Kings, and all the rest, if one of their members come in and they fall in those categories, being a rat, being a sex offender, or whatever, they get stomped out, they get stabbed up. The natives, throughout the history of my bid, they've been one of the most one of the groups that do the most when it comes to that shit. Because for one, everything on the reservation becomes federal, you know? So you get a lot of different type of crimes that come to the Fed system, and a lot of them get sex cases. But every single time when one of these native dudes come into the yard and they got a sex case, or they told on somebody, or if they check in on another yard, or if they used to run with another gang, but now they want to be native, and the bros on that yard find out, they get at them and they punish them. You know, before I left Florence, I think I shared this story earlier in some other videos. They had put this native dude that his case was he killed an infant, a baby. So two young homies, two young native bros, went and stomped his ass out on the tier, busted his skull on the steps, and his brain leaked out, and they ended up catching a body over it, right? But the point of this video is, you know, you got these dudes, even these COs, they don't like these. I can't, for the life of me, I can't imagine anybody that would condone or accept these people. Now, we can just say, okay, if you're a rat, if you're a buster, that's a different category as opposed to sex offenders. Because, you know, the police, they don't look at rats, they don't look at informants or busters the same way that we look at it. But I feel that there's no other way that you can look at the sex offender in any type of way but scum of the earth, right? Because these dudes, they're preying on young kids. These dudes, they're preying on females because they're bigger, stronger, or whatever, you know? But when these kids, when these dudes go to court, let's say a dude catches a case for violating a kid. He goes to court. When you're in the court, they have a thing called PSI. You know, again, everything I'm speaking of is just from my federal system experience. I haven't never been in the state. But a PSI is a pre-sentence report where they go and do your background, do your family, you know, find out your family history and all these things. Well, a lot of these dudes, they come up and they catch these sex cases, but when they're going before the judge or doing their PSI, they're telling the story how they were violated when they were kids, how they were abused when they were kids, and how they were traumatized. And for some reason, the courts accept that as an excuse. They accept that as far as a reason to not give them as much time to people like me. I went in and robbed a bank, ended up with 18 years, assaulted a CO, ended up with another 8 years, right? But here's these dudes that come into court, and they got all these cases of violations, you know, of kids, and they're going, you know, a few years, probation, maybe some therapy, or whatever. You know, the way I grew up, you know, my dad had a heavy hand. You know, there's a borderline between discipline and abuse. And I lead towards more of the latter. But growing up like that, I understand how it felt to be under that, how to deal with that, right? Like I had not an argument, but I had a conversation with my dad one time during one of these incidents, and I had told him, man, I hate you, right? And he looked at me and he was like, what? What did you say? I said, I hate you. How can you say that to me? How can you say that to me? I'm your father. When I was your age, I got worse than you. My stepdad used to fuck me up worse than you. And you know what? I never told him I hated him. I still respected him. So I looked at my dad and I'm like, okay, when he was doing all that stuff to you, Did you like it? I was like, what? Of course I didn't like it. It was horrible. So then I asked him, I said, well, if you didn't like it, it was so horrible, then why would you want to do that to me, your kid? And I think that conversation fucked him up, you know? That was the last time that we dealt with that. But I mean, of course, shortly after I got locked up, started going to the juvenile and stuff. But my point being is that no matter what's happened to us in our lifetime, there's a point in our life, we get to a certain age or a certain maturity where we know better. And we know between right and wrong. And if we disregard the things that we believe that are wrong, then there must be another reason why we're doing it, right? Because some people are creeps, some people are pervs, and some people are evil. You know, being in the place that I've been, I hate to say that some people shouldn't be let out of jail, but I've been in places with people that I know if the public want to be safe, they shouldn't let this motherfucker out of jail. Because these people, they relish in that chaos, they relish in that drama and that violence, and no amount of time, no matter what they're suffering from or whatever, they're not going to change. And I'm not judging them or anything, I'm just giving you the facts, right? So going back to the story, I'm saying is that these guys, they go to court and they get leniency because they talk about, oh, I was abused when I was a child, or I was violated when I was a child. And they might have been. And you know, I've never been abused in that way, so I can't speak on the psychology of it, how it fucks you up or what makes you do whatever. But I still believe that we're all grown. You know, there's a time in our life that we all know we're gonna learn between right and wrong. Maybe when you were a kid, you didn't know no better, but as a 30-year-old man, as a 40-year-old man, there's really no excuse. So if you're continuing that chaos, continuing that violence, then there's a part of you that enjoys that gets gratification out of taking advantage of a child or violating a woman. You know? So, you know, for me, like I said, I can only speak on me. I've never sat at a table with one of these dudes. And one of the incidents in the county jail when it comes in, so before I left to the feds in the county jail out here at 80 Old Metro, there's no politics. It's everybody for themselves. I mean, you got gang members or whatever that ride together, but as far as like black, Mexican, whites, there's a separation because we're all local. All the blacks that come in, they're all from different gangs. All the Mexicans come in, they're all from different gangs. Same thing with the whites. Some some are neo-Nazis, some are not, some are Crips, some are Blood. So there's really not a racial politics. So, and you're not on a yard where you're not walking the yard with everybody else. You're just stuck in a 14, 16-man tank. So when you come in, everybody's really pretty much on their own, you know. And for me, I had this incident where this kid came in. He was a white kid. I think at the time I was 21, and I think he might have been 19 or 20. So when he comes in, I ask him for his booking sheet, and he tells me he ate it. You know, I repeat some of my stories that every time I encounter these people, they're always eating their booking sheet. So I'm ripping. I was like, "Oh, you ate it." I say, "So what are you in here for?" He's like, "Oh, it's a misunderstanding." You know, all my senses go off. I already know the lingo. I've been through it before. Because every time somebody comes in that participate in those type of crime, I'm on them. And I'm not the Avengers or anything. I'm not here to. I just I just have such animosity and hatred for that group, that category, right? So I'm ripping up my sheet. I'm ready to tie this dude up, right? And my homeboy Pika, he's a Samoan dude. Like, like, wait till the morning. Wait till the morning. I said, for what? He goes, man, it's like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at night. He says it's too quiet. If he starts screaming, the CEO is gonna hear him. Because you only got one CEO on the whole floor, and I was on the second floor at this time. I was in 2C6. So you got three tiers, 3 cell blocks with 16, 14-man tanks on one side. So you got 3, 6, 7, 8. You got 7, 8 little pods and one CO for all of them. And he's in the corner by the elevator. So he said, hey, just wait till the morning. I said, all right. So when breakfast comes, we get up and they're passing the orderlies come in and they bring the trays. They put it there by our door. The CO opens the rack. We pull in, the trays and pass it out to everybody. So I'm sitting there eating breakfast and the sergeant comes through. The sergeant comes through and hollers this dude's name, this white kid. He said, hey man, so-and-so, roll up. The marshals are here for you. Now understand something too. There's state cases with these crimes, and then there's federal cases on these crimes. When there's federal cases, it's usually something more serious. I mean, I don't know how much more serious it gets, you know, from just the act, but when it comes to a federal level, for the feds to get involved in somebody in the state that's, violating kids or violating women, they either got to be doing it across state line, or there's like kidnapping and all sorts of different circumstances involved, or they're a serial, violator for the feds to come in. So the sergeant tells him, hey, roll up, the marshals are here for you, right? I'm still eating my breakfast, and I'm like, damn, because I'm not going to have an opportunity to do what I want to do. So I put up my tray, I go to the orderly's out in the hallway pushing the broom, and I tell the orderly, hey man, let me get the broom. So he unscrews the handle and tries to hand me the handle, and I'm like, no, I want the brush part. Now the brush part, you got to remember, it's almost 2 inches thick, and it's probably like 2 inches thick, 4 inches wide, and maybe 2.5, 3 feet long, right? I said, no, let me get the brush part. So, all right, so he takes it off and pushes the brush under the door for me. So the dude, he's over there on his bunk, packing up his stuff, rolling up his blanket and his sheets. I grabbed the brush part of the broom, walked over there, and just hit him in the back. Bah! And I just kept whacking him in the back of the head and his shoulder, back wherever, because he's ducking and he's getting punished. So he's trying to curl up, he ducked out the way, and I hit him so hard so many times that I split that brush part in half. Now think about that. I told you, that bitch is like an inch and a half, 2 inches thick, about 4 inches wide and 3.5 feet long. I broke it in half on him. After I broke it in half on him, I just started punching him, beating him down, and the homie grabbed me. He's like, hey, stop. Because, when you're in that moment, if everybody's been in any type of confrontation, you kind of zone out. You get caught up in the euphoric of the violence. I can't explain it. I don't really understand it myself, but I know, people tell you, oh, they black out, they zone out, they don't know it's nothing. You're just here, right? And, in all the instances that I get into, I find myself like going to that space where you're just like zoomed in, nothing else around you matters. You don't hear anything, you don't see anything except the confrontation and whatever it is that you're getting into. So the homies pulled me off because I got blood all over me. I split his head, a few different places. And, if anybody knows about head wounds, it leaks. Like you get a little, because I've been hit in the head with a hammer. I got hit in the head with a hammer in Lompoc, and I got maybe, a gash like this, but from outside looking in, that shit is just squirting. And my whole back is just leaking. So if nobody knew what would happen, they thought I just got my whole dome busted, right? But so I know that head wounds bleed really bad. So there's blood all over me. So the homies like, man, get in the shower, get in the shower. So I go get in the shower, wash off, whatever. I come back out, I'm wrapped up in a towel. I got my sandal shoes on, my shower shoes on, and dude is holding his sheet to his head. And, when you bundle up a sheet, it's about a wad about this big, and the sheet is like getting soaked up with all the blood that's coming from his head. So I walk by, he's sitting on top of his bunk, still leaking, got the sheet on his head, and I just grabbed his ass off the bunk, threw him on the floor, got on top of him, and just started punishing him until the homie pulled me off. Like, hey man, come on, it's enough, it's enough. You're gonna really hurt him. And like I said, I'm not anybody extra or anything like that, but I just grew up having a hatred for those people. And the purpose of this video is that our system in the Fed has changed now. Before, when somebody comes off the line, everybody in laundry yard got your name. And, according to your name, with your name that comes in laundry, they have a picture, a photo ID of you. So everybody knows, oh, this is a white guy, this is a black guy, oh, his last name is Alvarez, he might be a Mexican guy. So they pass it out to whatever race. I say, hey, you gotta come. There's gonna be 4 blacks, 6 whites, 2 Asian, 7 Mexican coming off the bus this week. So each race gets a list of who's coming off the bus, and they're already running their names, knowing what case why you're here, all that shit. So when you come on the line, within that first 2 or 3 days, if you're not kosher, if you ain't able to walk, they're punishing you. You know what I mean? No questions asked or nothing. They got your case. They know exactly what word's been sent about you. You're getting butchered. You're getting stomped out and sent on your way. Well, before I left Florence, they were trying to change the yard over. Because right now they have Tucson, Arizona is a sex offender yard. Terre Haute is a dropout sex offender yard. Coleman, and I'm not sure exactly which one, if it's Coleman 1 or Coleman 2. I still don't know which is which, but one of the Coleman in Florida is a sex offender dropout yard. The administration's reasoning was, well, they can all walk in the state. Rats, sex offenders, gangsters, whatever, they all coexist in the state. So their idea, their way of thinking is like, if they can coexist in the state, why can't they coexist out here in the feds? They tried it on all these yards, and these dudes keep getting punished, so they started designating these different yards for these sex offenders. But now they're getting to the point where they're trying to put all these dudes on just whatever yard, right? And the thing that they're using to try to control the yard, as opposed to the violence that are, issued out on these dudes, is that they're charging you. Like I said, going back, man, I don't believe if you're a man, a real man, that have integrity, that has morals, I don't believe that you can accept something like that. I don't think you can sit around and tolerate those kind of people, regardless if you're a gangster, regardless if you're just a convict, regardless if you're a civilian, and regardless if you're the police, the guards, administration. I don't understand how you're able to accept that or even want to put in a system to protect them. But that's what they're doing now in the feds, is that they're trying to protect all these pieces of shit. So now, when you go punish these dudes, you're catching a case. You know, like the two native homies. The guy dude that came in for killing a baby. And like I said, much love to all the native brothers out there that I've been with on the yard, man. They've always carried it 100 and took care of their business. And the two youngsters that got set, both of them had less than 2 years. But they know that this stuff is not acceptable. And they know there's a potential case to catch behind this. But because they feel adamantly about this situation, they still went in and put in that work and end up murking the dude. And now, before I left Florence, I was just in the shoe with them. They're hoping to be able to plead out to 7 years, for manslaughter. But I understand, like, dudes want to go home, man. When you're stuck in there, you want to go home. You miss home. You miss everything that's out here. You miss your girl. You miss your kids. You miss your family. You miss, eating the ice cream and all the rest. But when you buy into that life, I don't believe that there's any room for any type of tolerance or acceptance when it comes to those individuals. And I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I mean, I really feel like the way I feel about these individuals is the way that everybody should feel about them. Even out here in the community, man. Like, I don't want these busters living in my neighborhood. I definitely wouldn't accept any one of them if they were my relatives. Or if I had any homies that became one of them dudes, like, there ain't no way in hell we're going to be kicking and seeing each other at a barbecue. It's just not going to happen. But, to all the homies that's still stuck in the feds, man, much love. And I know the system is changing and they're trying to fuck us over. But I just hope you guys stick to your ethics, stay true to the game. Welcome to the USP.